So his capturing the cities, the subtleties of the color, and his sensitivity to the tones is more what it's about. It's almost like a symphony. It's musical.
Ivan's art speaks to you. When you look at it, you can see it's living, it's different, you know, and it's giving you a message. But sometimes you look at art, it's just paint on paper. It's different.
When you look around and take a look at what is the landscape for local artists, and then the landscape for local black artists at that point in time, is perhaps celebrated as one of the more talented, intuitively trained artists on the island.
This year's Ivan Payne Award goes to Jefferson Folks.
Suffice to say that the Ivan Payne Award of Excellence speaks to his character as a person. To have his name there for someone to be the beneficiary of an award, yes, speaks to his character as a person.
So 1920s going into the 1930s, you've got to think of Barbados as going through a great economic lull. There has been a lot of depression. There's not much money in the sugar market. It's still very much an agrarian society. Persons depend on sugar for survival. At around the time that he is born, we are maybe a decade past the First World War. We are also 4 years past when those persons who would have gone to Panama to migrate, to make money, to come back home had ended. So it's not an economically vibrant time. So it's really about survival and trying the best to actually survive. Many people had 2 or 3 jobs. So the person who was a laborer during the sugar crop season out of crop might have been, for the men, might have been a fisherman, or had learned to trade as an artisan and is going to do that. But come sugarcane season, we'll go to the sugar factory because that's where most of the money is being made. So this is the area and time that we're looking at for Ivan. And then born in Speightstown, however, we're looking at a Speightstown where a lot of the trade will still have been very much dictated by the sea. This is the height of the Speightstown schooners moving people and goods from the north to the west into Bridgetown. So that's the type of society that he would have lived in, where beyond Speightstown as we know it today would have been sugarcane fields and factories.
And while he was in school, and his teacher at school was a gentleman called Banfield. I can't remember his last name. But he had this encouraging teacher who helped him a lot and helped develop his talent.
Properly. Don't walk too close. Put your hand on his shoulder and that will show you where you need to be.
Good job, Ivan.
I think he had to be self-taught. I think he was just gifted.
He was natural. When we go to art, I would divide my canvas into a square and a rectangle and go from there. He didn't do that. But if you put that thing to him, it would work out as if he had done it. He was that good.
And his parents encouraged him very much in his art. Now, as a former teacher, many parents do not encourage their children, even today, in 2020, in pursuing the idea of pursuing a career, an art-related career, because they say, what are you going to do with that? You're not going to make any money, you can't live off of it. For me, one of the most wonderful things about his story is that his father was a baker, which is a creative activity in itself, and he had a bakery in Speightstown, creating different pastries and what have you. And Ivan even went to the extent of experimenting with making colors from flowers. He did that, and only, I think, in about in 1936, he acquired his first set of crayons.
So they could only assume access to a primary level education, I think up to about standard 7. So young people left school at 14, 15. Many of them would have gone as laborers into the sugarcane fields. Others would have sought out an apprenticeship to someone.
But it's just the white people who are into this thing, you know, not the black people. For a start, you can't paint if you ain't got canvas. And canvas is not reasonable. You can't paint if you ain't got brushes.
And art among that generation, when it comes to working class people, they could not afford it. That was a luxury. So for him to break into the art world, he had to be exceptionally good. He painted on everything. There was a table, the top, there was art on it. Anything that Ivan could get his hand on, he seemed to paint.
His father being a baker meant that there's a steady income, but still perhaps to be deemed to be lower class, because you don't have a lot of information. But at least there would have been a trade. There would have been food on the table.
Well, I remember that we used to visit him at a particular time of the year. Now, my parents were members of the Brethren, the Close Brethren Church, and their custom on bank holidays was to visit particular churches. Each year, the same church would be visited at the same time. And it was around either Easter or Whitsun, one of the two, that they visited the Spikestown branch of the church. And during this period, my dad would get my mother and my sister and I and take us to visit Uncle Alfred. The house he lived in was that narrow passage between Queen Street and Sand Street, where the townhouses are, and he lived in one of those townhouses that are just on the street in that narrow passage. And that's where I used to visit. My recollection is of a very quiet household, which to me, Ivan was the most lively, and I took to him straight away. So we did strike up a little bit of a relationship. From my memory, he was first noted for his carvings. It's his carvings that he showed me first. And I know that on one of the visits when all the family were there, which is my family and his family, he brought out carvings that he had run an exhibition with and showed us.
And at the end of all of that, the parents thought, we'll apprentice him to a joiner, because it's always useful to have a trade. So and Barbados has a wonderful history, which I think it still continues to have, of furniture makers and joiners who do excellent work.
And I recognize even before I knew him as a painter, there were 4 chairs in my dad's home, in our home, that I knew that Ivan had made. And from a teenager, I had my eyes on those 4 chairs. I remember saying to my siblings, when my parents die, I don't care about land, I don't care about money. I want those 4 chairs. I happen to have 3 pieces by him. But 2 chairs, a table, and a bed frame.
And in my mind's eye, I see 2 carvings of women, one as a Morby seller and one as a seller of fruits. And I don't know if that's my imagination or if that's for real, but that's something that vaguely plays in my mind, that these were the two figurines that he got prizes for at an exhibition.
Along by Martley told me a nice story. Ivan carved these two figures, which he was using as doorstops. And he gave them to Alambe. So that is part of Alambe's collection today.
When I went, he was in the kitchen cooking. And he told me come and talk to him when he was cooking. So when we push open the doors and I look down on the ground, I see these two stoppers, two statues. Those are the statues that he gave me of two Mobby women. That is what they were, right? And it was, as he said, he did them and made them as door stoppers. And when I saw them, and I said, "But man, I didn't know you do sculpture." One of them things I guess was because he was a woodworker. I'm a joiner, right? So he got, and then he said, "Man, you want them?" And he gave them to me.
I could only think or suspect that it is from the pieces of mahogany that would left off from the furniture that he was taught to make that he started to be interested in carving, because and probably used his skills from joinery to start the carving. And I feel that is probably sparked him off in art, and because it would appear that he was completely self-taught. Parents would send, especially working class parents, would send their children to learn to be artisans, masonry, carpentry, joinery, tailoring, that sort of thing. So to have a child now veering off to do art at a time when you would think he should be earning money, because people didn't think there was any money in art or much worth in it at the time, certainly not working class parents.
Well, part of what I suppose would have contributed to his popularity, you're talking about among the West Coast people and others who collected his work. I think it is both the skill that he demonstrated, and he also his work would have been seen at the annual and industrial exhibition, which you must have heard of, that took place in Queen's Park around Christmas, around December. And in that he won a lot of prizes.
I would also think that if a child showed talent to start getting prizes and some kind of recognition, then families would probably begin to be proud and realize that there is something in their art.
During this time as a young man, he would have met Frank Cullimore, who was the editor of BIM magazine, the writer, and Frank Cullimore published some of his work in BIM. But most significantly of all is that he entered John Harrison of the British Council, because the British Council had an office for the Caribbean based right here in Barbados. And the British Council's purpose was to, remember these are the colonial times, was to spread, what should I say, British cultural norms to the colonies. So an exposure to art, literature, well, I suppose film to some extent, and that type of thing. So John Harrison was very helpful to many artists.
One of their remits is about education and the development of the appreciation for art, but also the training of artists. I think they also ran training programs during the day, and them in collaboration with institutions like the museum around the time would have run Sunday workshops to teach people how to draw and how to paint, and also how to take photographs. So it's almost an incubator of sorts for artists.
He also was befriended by Neville Connell, who was the director of the Barbados Museum. And Neville Connell was really very supportive. He invited Ivan Payne to have his first solo exhibition at the museum in 1952.
You know, the transform, change the museum into art gallery. That one was one of the first art galleries. So you would hang pictures there, free, but then to find out of there, and you would got to pay to get the picture hung. This was right, but the point is, it opened the avenue to the public. There was this art gallery which was publicized, and people used to go there and buy, and people used to exhibit there, including myself. It helped him because a lot of people who didn't know about him got to know, and especially overseas visitors. The overseas visitors were they loved art, and they would always seek to know where a gallery is, and they found out that was one, the museum was one.
One of his interests was about growing that West Indian appreciation and understanding of what art is and how art could be used to transform a society. Barbadians were invited into the museum not only to view the exhibitions, but they did also provide classes, and they utilized the museum's temporary exhibition galleries to showcase local art. And I believe that Mr. Connell would have utilized the Arts Council in order to push that agenda, where art was seen as a way by which Barbadians could express themselves, and the need then to identify Barbadians for that training.
Most of the artists, the group around Goldie White that became the Barbados Arts Council ultimately, and Kathleen Hawkins and Aileen Hamilton, they were looking at the people and producing a world of their own, but a world through the people and the activities of the people. Whereas Ivan Payne, it's the buildings, it's the streets.
Look at what he did with the Tuk Band, look at what he did with the other types of things that represent Barbados, and so on. And that was, in other words, he captured the lifestyle of the people around him. And that is what he did. And there are a lot more paintings like that, but I don't know where they're going to.
Living in Speightstown, which was the biggest town in that area, you observe it, it is very much its own world. And when you see those paintings, it looks somehow different from when you see paintings of other people.
What I saw were scenes of Barbados, scenes of Speightstown. So he was recording scenes around him at the time. And I don't think you go out to paint something that you don't like or value. You would paint something that is familiar, something that you really value and like seeing. Speightstown in the 1940s and 50s was quite a different Speightstown from now. And unfortunately, we've just lost one of the old buildings. But the building next to that used to house Marjorie Griffith. I remember she was a music teacher. It would house the telephone exchange was there, and also the library was in that building. That is a 3-story building there on the beach side. We also had an old store which is still standing there, and he was the main supplier of medicines, etc., Noel Roach. Now right next to Noel Roach is a little narrow street called Godin's Alley, and next to that was Challoner's Cooper's Yard, and it was there that the molasses was barreled, and you would hear the hammering, the men hammering the barrels.
You see working people that struggle. Because if you look at a lot of his paintings, there's one in Nice Road, I believe it's Nice Road, from a viewpoint of by the rectory in Farm Road, And you can see child houses with laundry. You can see persons use like an oil drum that they beat up this oil drum to get peeling, to form peelings for privacy. A lot of them were fishing scenes to space. Some going up next to the sea. You can see working people. I don't recall seeing people living in that street in Amazon. All that I can think of, you can see a struggling people, like I said, the working class.
I myself, as I probably said already, had to, and I missed, and get it to somebody. And to sell them, I was told to sell them. So I have nothing of none of his painting. I had a painting called The Front Door. And I mean, a bedroom, shattered house, front door partly open, and a breadfruit tree. I mean, it was real typical Belgium. Here was a man who was in love with Barbados, and who, without the kind of training you would think about, was able to get things looking right.
He entered the Gainsborough Art Competition, which is an international art competition. So in that time, I mean, today, when a Barbadian artist wins an international competition, it's a big deal. So you can imagine what it would have been like at that time, in the 50s, an even bigger deal. And he won international competition, this Gainsborough competition, which was run by a gallery called Foyle's Gallery in London. And in addition to that, a little bit later, he also won the Alcoa. And the Alcoa company, I think, is an oil company based in Trinidad, and they had an art competition. And he won a prize in that. I wouldn't use the term primitive to describe him, or naive painter, because I think the style of his work, naive suggests intuitive, and you're not trying to follow a traditional form of looking at work and reproducing something that is true to life. The intuitive brings with it something a little bit more unschooled. There's that kind of implication. And the work of the intuitives is just as beautiful, but there's like a greater sensitivity. Almost, you might be familiar with the work of Aboriginal artists. That is the link I can make, where you're not trying to produce something that has a photographic representation. And I wouldn't say that Ivan's really was intuitive. It was different. When he went to art school in Britain, the teacher that he encountered, whose name I do not recall, did observe that he would not describe him as a primitive either, but he felt that his style and his approach was governed mostly by the fact that he was in this very, like a small world, a narrow world, and he was trying to reproduce that world and the atmosphere of Speightstown. And I think he succeeds, because even when you look at his paintings way back when, and you go into Speightstown is something so very different.
The simplicity, which is something I didn't appreciate in the painting he gave to Dad, but which I appreciate now. The simplicity in the lines, and for me then, I wondered, why isn't it in brighter colors and what have you? And now I see and appreciate the simplicity and the way he used colors. And there is nothing garish about his paintings.
The reason why he went to the UK is because he was awarded through the efforts of the British Council a scholarship, a fellowship, to study art for a period of time.
But he's going at a time where there is that migration of West Indians to the UK. But what we've got to remember is that that migration was for two reasons. It was to help to rebuild post-war Britain, but it was also a migration that was regulated. Now, first of all, he had to be doing very well to have been considered by the Arts Council for a scholarship. So clearly, somewhere between leaving school at 14 or 15, recognizing that he does have this talent for art, honing by himself his art to where he is an intuitive artist, then being noticed enough by the people at the Art Council that they're willing to provide him for scholarship to go to England to study, says that the recognition of a particular talent and the willingness for the talent to learn to be sent.
I would say that his visits to the museums and his awareness of persons who he might have seen simply as jigsaw puzzles or in art history books at the British Council, people like Constable, Gainsborough, and those people in the 17th century, flower painters and so on. Those persons, I think, would have had an impact on him.
I do have some flowers. I have a tree with flowers, flower arrangement, a sea, and I know I had an incomplete one. We have a garden.
Ivan could make a subject out of the most trivial thing. He would find he had a way of painting flowers, capes, that nobody ever rifled, you know. I got that word wrong, but not rifled. Rivaled. Nobody ever painting like Ivan.
I think he's very good at using colors. And the way he formed his picture too, and even variety. If you look at even different styles, you might be able to look at an artist and you have a particular style, but even versatile. Even if the picture had density, you can see, when you look at that picture, you can see the change in the background, the size is different, you can see the density in the picture, so they look, like I said, they were living.
Because when you look at the painting, it look right or wrong. I mean, regardless of how well it's painted, if you have the pretensions, look at that. What do you think he put that fella up there bending down? And that little blossom there, it ain't by chance.
Well, I'm still exploring and speculating about that time in the UK. He met his wife, I'm not sure if he met her here or he met her in the UK. They were married in Lancashire, and at least I think they were married in Lancashire. In Cornwall, there was an artistic community, a colony of artists that had been set up by the artists, and Cornwall would have been something quite different because of course it's by the sea, and having this artistic colony there, and these were people who were in some cases doing more abstract work, more adventurous work in the 40s, 50s. So I think that would have had an effect on him. And even though he didn't turn to abstraction, but the awareness that these developments were taking place in the visual arts abroad would have been quite exciting for him. So I think that would have had its own impact, because some landscape paintings that we have seen in the collection of his cousin, Timothy Payne, suggest that they might have been done or influenced by his experience in the UK, because it's really, for me, quite unusual to see landscapes by Ivan Payne rather than cityscapes.
I have a painting that is different to the ones in Barbados. The houses, the landscape, everything, because it involves a lot of landscape and houses. And this one is different, all the others. Mine is not as bright, it don't have as many colors, it's a bit grey, and that, from to me saw it, this is English, you know. It's sort of what England is like. Well, not that England is grey dull, but you know, the colors are not that. Like Barbados, you have a lot of bright colors, or landscape is brighter. And I do feel that one was done in England.
By the time he returns, we are swiftly going through some momentous changes. By the time we get into the 60s, of course, we are having the discussion about moving towards being independent. But the fact that Ivan himself is commissioned to create an exhibition around the time of independence means that that latent talent that had been observed as a teenager, that got awarded with a scholarship, is now being able somewhat to make a living out of this talent that he has. But it also, in a way, is a statement of, as an island moving into independence, moving into being free of this colonial yoke, we are identifying those people whose talents and artwork are in tune with what we wish to do and who we want to be.
After Ivan came from England, he was living somewhere in Fitzville, St. James. I think he had a studio. He used to live there for some period of time before he died. After coming back, I think people didn't recognize him because he won an award in England. And in my research and trying to find his art, I met persons, and there are quite a few in Barbados, who have his art. They would not advertise it. I've seen some, but they would not advertise it, and they would not sell it. They would not sell it, they treasure it.
Yes, that is how I come to know, because I would always belong to the Arts Council. I was the secretary, so you had to be there regardless of what they're doing. And there were whole exhibitions, and I would always go down there with Ivan, whole exhibitions. And if I had the sense I had now, I would buy one from him.
He was a very humble man. He never talked about his work as being exciting or anything else like this. He just did it, and that was who he was.
And I remember the first piece I saw since coming back here was a visit to Montrose Fielding Bab's house in Christchurch. I was interested in some of his work, and I went there to see what I could obtain. And I looked up on the wall, and there was an Ivan Payne. It was a painting of breadfruit tree leaves, shades and light. And I looked up, and I remember saying to him, "Are you going to part with that thing?" He gave me a flat. No, don't even go there. Don't think about it.
Ivan, you can't talk anything. Ivan went to England to be able to say he had a British council. He met him at a Payne. Met a lady out there. She was a West Indian girl. She used to be a nurse. She trained in England, but they married in England, see? And she was proud of the Ivan Payne man for his fame. Apparently hit England too, The English are very, very knowledgeable with paintings, You can't go out there with any foolishness. And she married the man, and she started to slide across the road into other people's arms, and he was annoyed at it, but he couldn't correct it. So he took this thing. He wouldn't open up to anybody.
He loved his wife. You can tell that he was hurt because of the separation, and sometimes people find it hard to let go. And apparently he found it hard to let go. So his heart went to England with her, but his body was in Barbados. And I think that is what really, really affected. And drinking, probably see that as a way of relaxing, which is not, but that's what he told him. Probably he needed someone then. But when you look to such a great artist or person, people tend to think you don't need help. Well, he's a genius, he's good. But those are humans too. And they need support, they need love, they need encouragement like anybody else. So he in that position, people just take it for granted, But I think he needed help. He coping with the loss of his wife.
It affected him, but he wouldn't talk to anybody. You pet him, he stopped painting. He stopped painting. And just sat in a chair one night and get the ghost.
I have to represent Ivan Payne Award of Excellence. I was incarcerated for a while, and I would have seen these guys painting, you know. That's why a guy like Carly Trotman, he actually introduced me to it, right? And I always thought, you know, I can do that. But when I got exposed to it, I would always endeavor to be, you know, like when I see artists paint, I say, I want to be like that artist. I want to be like that artist, you know. And that kind of compelled me. My first award was 76 years and still standing. It spoke to the resilience of a lady, which would be like any one of us, grandmother or grandmother. I always admired Owen Arthur, late Owen Arthur. You know, I think Prime Minister. I think he was just an awesome person, you know, and I felt good to be presented with the opportunity to meet him. As a matter of fact, he insisted. He sent a message and said, "No officer can come and collect this award. I want to meet the inmate of this." And then they just said, "Okay, well, you're going to meet the Prime Minister." I said, "Wow, that's cool. That's really cool, you know." So I sent my best click suit, you know, and got myself all sorted out. That and I went there. I really look forward to going down to Lara Court and receiving my award. And mind you, the central bank didn't waste any time at all in buying it. If I knew the central bank was going to buy it, there and then I would have raised the price.
Fielding looked up to Ivan. He was so impressed, and he spoke very highly of Ivan Payne. When I went to his home, he showed me a painting by Ivan Payne, 2 barefoot leaves, and I looked at it, you know, and he said to me, "I would so love to get more Ivan Payne." You know, he thought that he was a very good artist, and he had an influence on him too. I think he's who helped motivate Fielding to persist. That you can't have a future in painting.
He was always willing to help and to teach people. I've learned a lot from him and realized that even though he didn't read about it, it came natural to him. You see, I learned a lot. But then to die that way, lonely sitting in a chair, you know, he wouldn't open up. He's got to open up to people. And he didn't open up.
You would see a lot of my work in charter houses, local Barbadian sceneries, sheep and stamp pipes and that kind of stuff. However, if you looked at my last award, my last Payne award, you would notice that it was lifeintransition.com. So you would see the transition of life from the charter house, and then you gravitating towards the digital world and the digital time. So to the youngsters, you would be more inclined to paint things that are in your time, in the digital time.
He must have had a big influence on people in the era when it comes to painting, because obviously there were not many role models for those youngsters back then, and going to England to get that scholarship, so to speak, and winning an award would have influenced his generation or his contemporaries to do painting. So he had to have a big influence.
His legacy as a painter, his style might speak to some younger painters as to how to use color, and that color to express yourself it doesn't have to be, you don't have to express what you see in blazing, it doesn't have to blaze off the canvas, that it can also express itself very subtly, but that whatever it is there.
Do not wait to be discovered. It may never happen. But if you take your own initiative and you try to get your work out there, you exhibit, you have your work be seen into other worlds that you might not socially necessarily be part of, people will know you exist. And that's what Ivan did.
You should learn that you should try and also link with people that know. Sometimes you find you can correct people that know. That is how we would advise anybody.
You need to view his work through the lens of an anti-colonial movement and the lens of both proto and post-independent Barbados. And then that slow creation of what national identity is, especially when it comes to the visual arts. And that's another lens through which we need to take a look at Ivan's work.
You see, it worked for me because when I introduced myself as the recipient of the Payne Award of Excellence, it, that kind of opens up the wow factor or awesome, even though people that I say to might not necessarily know him, but through the works that they see me produce, it's almost like they get to know him. So he has left a legacy.
So his legacy definitely was whatever you do to your best. And I think he followed his passion and did to his best.